We just got done with one.
So, all right, so now
Hey, you promised pizza.
I'll
You promised pizza.
get on with a regular council meeting in.
Do we have an agenda?
I don't have an agenda.
Just gonna pass them all out. There's a lot, our third meeting, real quick.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, can we get a, do we need a roll call for this meeting again, Madam Auditor? All right, can we get a roll call?
Councilmember Rivas.
Here, still.
Councilmember Bozick.
Present.
Councilmember Brickner.
Here.
Councilmember Graham.
Yes, here.
Councilmember Jessen.
Here.
Councilmember Sims.
Present.
And Councilmember Wagner.
Here.
Present.
All right, so we're still here. So there's some minutes for your consideration.
Motion to approve
Second.
September 20th meeting minutes.
Motion is second on the floor, discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. First reading for our regular council meeting.
Last year.
Jeremy's perfume is too strong, isn't it? Making you sneeze.
Notice the taxpayers of proposed additional appropriations. Notice is hereby given the taxpayers of Porter County, Indiana, that the proper legal officers of Porter County will meet in the County Government Administration Building located 155 Indiana Avenue, Valparaiso, Indiana, on October 18, 2022, at 6 p.m. to consider the following appropriation adjustments to county budgets for the year 2022 and to transact any further business which might come before the council. Clerk Perpetuation Fund, 1119, hourly, 15,000, office supplies, 1,000, travel, 500, software rental fees, 15,000, sales disclosure fund, 1131, contractual, 32,166, cumulative bridge fund, 1135, advertising, 500, stormwater fund, 1182, salaries, 16,142, FICA, $1,235, perf, $1,810, advertising, $1,500. Public Defender Supplemental Fund, legal services, $17,000, zone enforcement fund, other services, $55,000, highway engineering fund, bituminous, $100,000. ARP, COVID, fiscal recovery, contractual, $10,095,195. ARP assistance, $8,998,625. Indiana Dunes Tourism, maintenance agreements, $10,000. Taxpayers appearing at such meetings shall have the right to be heard thereon. The appropriation adjustments as finally made will be referred to the Indiana Department of Local Government Finance. Where applicable, the DLGF will make a written determination as to the sufficiency of funds to support the appropriations made. Signed, Victor Bank, Auditor of Porter County, published October 6, 2022. And that concludes first reading.
Thank you, Madam Auditor. All right, as we started in our regular council meeting a couple of meetings ago, opening the floor to the public for any items on the agenda. So I can read it again real fast if you want. The public comment session, which will be immediately following first reading, is providing an opportunity for residents to address the Porter County Council about agenda items. Participation is encouraged, however, to respect others who wish to speak. Public comment is not intended to be a public conversation. Before speaking, a person must provide their name and address. Exceptions may be considered. A speaker will be given a reasonable amount of time to make a comment or express opinion. No person will be recognized more than once during the meeting. All speakers must remain at the podium, which is not up right now, but over there where the speakers are coming out of the ceiling still, I think, is it? Podium will be granted by the council. Any speaker that engages in personal attacks and or any uncivil manner will be stopped and may be prohibited from future opportunities to publicly address the council. The Porter County Council members and county officials that are present may be available after the meeting for further discussion. So if there's anybody from the public that wants to speak on any members and any items on the agenda.
Looks like we got one.
Make sure I'm actually, all right. Rebecca Tomerlin, 103 Elm Street, Valparaiso, 46383. I believe this is the right time to talk about, I think it's 21.07. Is that the ARPA COVID Fiscal Recovery Fund?
Correct.
Is that in regards to also the small business and nonprofit ARPA funding? So I want to make sure I'm actually addressing the appropriate line.
Yes, those are the two last
Okay.
steering
Excellent.
committee recommendations.
Gotcha. Okay, so anyhow, as many of you may not know, I was on the ARPA subcommittee for small businesses and nonprofits. And I did sit through 5 hours of the YouTube video, watching that wonderful budget hearing. I'm sure none of you want to have to sit through again. My only concerns are that many of us spent many, many hours listening to all of these nonprofits, listening to why Opportunity Enterprises needs that respite house, why Meals on Wheels needs the bus, why we have Hilltop in so much need. We heard all of these things, but we also had faith in the process because it was posted on the county website saying this is how the process is going to work, and that the steering committee would make some decisions based upon those. I have and still have great faith in that, but I am concerned that we are using some of those funds to fill a gap in our budget. And even though the final rule may say that's legal to do, my concerns is it ethical to do? We have a lot of people that are homeless. Heck, I lost my own job when COVID shut down, and there are daycare shortages. Hilltop needs that funding to help women and families get child care so they can get back to work. And I hope we are not going to use those funds to fill gaps, to buy a truck, to buy something else, when there are needs that people need. We're not all government workers. However, we do need the government, and we need your help. And so do these nonprofits, and so do a lot of these people that were not fighting, but working really hard. They spent many hours for these presentations. So that was my only concern, and I hope you take that into mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, seeing none, move on. Commissioners. So you got a CCD, and I know there was a last-minute add-on too, so you got some transfers over here. $60,000 from building to power, $60,000 from motor vehicles to power, $40,000 from building to postage. Reason transfers needed to get to the end of the year.
Motion.
So, the commissioners want to discuss it? Oh.
Second.
Motion a second on the floor. Good? Yeah, I think we're good, man. Yeah. Motion second, discussion? So, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Tourism, an additional $10,000. Appropriation needed to cover $6,459 increase to contract for cleaning services.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
You guys use Molly Maid too? Motion a second on the floor.
You might be able to get a good deal from them, I heard.
We may be looking into that.
So, further discussion, questions? We get a roll call on the additional.
Councilmember Bozick.
Yes.
Councilmember Brickner.
Yes.
Councilmember Graham.
Yes.
Councilmember Jessen.
Yes.
Councilmember Sims.
Yes.
Councilmember Wagner.
Yes.
And Councilmember Rivas.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Public Defender. Public Defender General Fund, a transfer of $200 from legal services to liability insurance. Transfer needed because malpractice insurance amount increased. There's also a supplemental, an additional $17,000 to legal services. Appropriation needed because the cost and number of appeals has increased. There's also another transfer under the supplemental, $8,000 from training and educational legal services. Reason appropriation needed because of cost and number of appeals has increased.
Make a motion on both transfers and the addition.
Second.
Motion and a second, discussion. Seeing none, can we get a roll call on the two transfers for the additional out of the two funds?
Councilmember Brickner.
Yes.
Councilmember Graham.
Yes.
Councilmember Jessen.
Yes.
Councilmember Sims.
Yes.
Councilmember Wagner.
Yes.
Councilmember Rivas.
Yes.
And Councilmember Bozick.
Yes.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Appreciate it.
All right, have a great night.
Thanks for hanging out with us this evening.
Development, stormwater. There's a lot here. Cume Bridge Fund, there's an additional $500 advertising. Reason appropriation needed to advertise job openings within the department. I'll keep going. Stormwater Fund, additional $1,500 for advertising. Appropriation needed to advertise job openings within the department.
I'll make a motion on those two additionals.
Second.
Motion on the two additionals, and a second, discussion. Roll call.
Real quick, just one question. How many positions are you advertising for?
Back down to 2 now.
Oh, that's good.
Highway engineer, that's the reason for the cumulative bridge fund. And under the stormwater fund, it's the project manager. We were also going to advertise for the county engineer, but at the moment, no, we're holding off on that.
Cool. Thank you.
Further discussion? Roll call?
Councilmember Graham.
Yes.
Councilmember Jessen.
Yes.
Councilmember Sims.
Yes.
Councilmember Wagner.
Yes.
Councilmember Rivas.
Yes.
Councilmember Bozick.
Yes.
And Councilmember Brickner.
Yes.
7-0.
So there's another additional out of the stormwater fund, $16,000 of salaries. $1,200, $1,235 FICA, $1,810 to PERF. Reason, appropriation needed to cover the salary FICA PERF for the new position of stormwater engineer program manager through the remainder of 2022. That's what we just approved during the budget session. There's also Form 144, $78,000 to zero. Stormwater staff engineer, and then rechanging the name.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
This-
Do these include, that it's still on level with everything through our payroll study, the equal departments and everything?
This is what we just did
Yeah,
during the budget session.
it's in line though.
Yeah.
That's all I'm asking.
Did.
That's all I need.
So that was for the additional Form 144.
Yes.
There's a
Yes,
motion?
yes.
And a second? Further discussion? Can we get a roll call on the additional and the 144 change?
Councilmember Jessen.
Yes.
Councilmember Sims.
Yes.
Councilmember Wagner.
Yes.
Councilmember Rivas.
Yes.
Councilmember Bozick.
Yes.
Councilmember
maybe.
Brickner.
Yes.
And Councilmember Graham.
Yes.
7-0.
Zone Enforcement Fund, $55,000 on other services. Appropriation needed to pay Ken Richmond.
Who's Ken Richmond? Well, what is he? I don't even know who he is, just what's he do?
I have a degree order from the court, so I'm gonna.
You can't tell us?
On that. It goes back to a BZA case some years ago where Lamar Advertising wanted to put up an electronic billboard at the location in the northeast corner of US 6 and 450 West or Bay Road. Okay, the sign was put up, and part of that was an agreement with the BZA to clean up his property. This also was in court. So that was filed in Porter Superior Court on this. Lamar Advertising, for the leasing of the property and easement on Mr. Richmond's property, was to give us the money, and it was going to be held by the auditor's office until Mr. Richmond started cleaning up his property or came up to the situation. There's like $80-some thousand that's in this fund right now, but it's really not taxpayers' money. It is Lamar Advertising. Give us that money to hold for Ken Richmond. Now, what I gave Attorney Harper there is the actual agreed order that was filed in Superior Court, which says to pay Mr. Richmond $55,000 of this fund that he has, that we have come up with an agreement. He is proceeding with it, and we're going to give him $55,000 of this money.
So did he clean it up?
He has an order where he is doing it. Right now, he's moving items on that. There's going to be continuing check on that. He does need some of this money to be able to pay some contractors to go in there and start doing some of this work. So yes, it was agreed upon.
1-1, that's all I had.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. Motion second. Further discussion? You okay? Yep. Attorney Harper? We get a, well, there's,
It's legit.
that's fine. Can we get a roll call on that additional? Keep it separate.
Yes. Councilmember Sims.
Yes.
Councilmember Wagner.
Yes.
Councilmember Rivas.
Yes.
Councilmember Bozick.
Yes.
Councilmember Brickner.
Yes.
Councilmember Graham.
Yes.
And Councilmember Jessen.
Yes.
7-0.
Highway Engineering Fund, $100,000 to bituminous. Reason, it's an additional appropriation needed to pay for paving projects, the Highway Engineering Fund.
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion second, discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Wagner.
This is the.
Yes.
Councilmember Rivas.
Yes.
Councilmember Bozick.
Yes.
Councilmember Brickner.
Yes.
Councilmember Graham.
Yes.
Councilmember Jessen.
Yes.
And Councilmember Sims.
Yes.
7-0.
It's got like a lot of paving and stormwater to do out there. I don't know what you guys are doing in here.
I don't know either.
That's a good question. Every night.
I better go help you guys, whatever you need help with.
Assessor, Hello, Assessor. An additional $32,166 for contractual services. Sales Disclosure Fund, I should state, an additional $32,166 for contractual services. Appropriation needed to pay for annual support and maintenance for our computer-assisted mass appraisal
Motion.
system.
Second.
Motion second, discussion.
Yeah, just wondering, was it not anticipated, or why are we looking for the additional?
It's actually a fund, so the assessor's office, the auditor, and a few other funds get money from sales disclosures, and so we have to appropriate it over to the line item to be able to pay out of that. So we only can use it for things that help with sales. So we aren't the only person who get money in this fund. I don't know who else it is, auditor, who else? It's like 4 or 5 of us who get money from the sales disclosure recorder. And so we're just appropriating it over to use it, our portion of it.
I'm curious to know why it wasn't budgeted that way.
Right.
Because we don't pay it out of the general fund then, so we try and pay everything we can out of a different fund if we can, so we can use.
Appreciate that.
We can use this
There's
to pay
only
it out of the
certain things
fund.
we can use it for.
We only can use it for sales disclosure, maintenance, or record keeping.
Okay.
All right. Is there a motion and second?
Yeah.
Roll call, there's no other questions?
Councilmember Rivas.
Yes.
Councilmember Bozick.
Yes.
Councilmember Brickner.
Yes.
Councilmember Graham.
Yes.
Councilmember Jessen.
Yes.
Councilmember Sims.
Yes.
And Councilmember Wagner.
Yes.
7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Watch over there.
Clerk Perpetuation Fund.
She's doing one of these. You guys gonna be here forever?
Board of Election Registration, an additional $15,000 of software rental fees. The reason, appropriation needed for payment of new phone app
Oh, we did that.
OCV LLC, custom mobile apps. There's another additional $15,000 to hourly, $1,000 to office supplies, $500 to travel. Reason, appropriation needed to cover hourly office supplies and travel. So there's 2 additionals in front of you from your,
It's all coming out of the clerk perpetuation fund.
County.
Last month, there was a whole lot of
I'll
transfers.
make a motion to approve.
Second.
Now we need to pay the rest.
motion is second on the floor, discussion?
Yep.
Roll call on the 2 additionals.
Councilmember Bozick.
Yes.
Councilmember Brickner.
Yes.
Hey.
Councilmember Graham.
Yes.
Councilmember Jessen.
Yes.
Councilmember Sims.
Yes.
Councilmember Wagner.
Yes.
Councilmember Rivas.
Yes.
Thanks,
7-0.
Justin.
Thank you. What'd I miss? A wow or something? I don't know. Missed something. Porter County Expo Center. Expo Center Fund. Transfer $10,000 from hourly to food and groceries. $5,000
Make a
from
motion to
hourly
approve.
to event
Second.
expenses. Reason, transfer needed to cover expenses for the remainder of 2020 year. There's a motion and second on the floor.
What
Discussion.
perpetuation fund are you taking this
I
out
don't
of?
have a,
Oh, my goodness.
You need a perpetuation fund.
How about a golf fund?
All in favor of the 2
Okay,
transfers
Golf-
signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign, IT.
thank you.
General fund transfer, $70,000 from data processing equipment to maintenance agreement. Reason, transfer of funds needed for annual maintenance agreements for our data storage devices.
Motion.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Why do you have to transfer it? Why can't you just pay it from there? If it's data processing equipment?
I can't pay maintenance agreements out of data process.
I didn't know. That's what I was asking.
That's fine.
Is it data or data?
Depends
Star
on the day
Trek?
of the week.
Okay.
Say tomato.
All in favor of the transfer signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Have a good night.
Extension.
She might have thought that you, we stuck that on there, we squeezed it in.
That's a transfer. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion second. Joy, you want to represent him? Motion $500 transfer from training and education to maintenance. Reason needed to cover maintenance contract. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right. Here we go. So we've got 2 additionals in front of us and maybe some more action on the 2 ARP COVID Fiscal Recovery Fund. There's an additional of $8,998,625 to ARP assistance. I believe those are the 2 remaining subcommittees. And there's an additional $10,095,195 to contractual services. That represents the $10 million that was set aside. It was kind of based upon lost revenue, if I'm correct. So the reason to implement Porter County's American Rescue Plan expenditure plan with any necessary appropriation transfers to be needed. And so I don't know, Mike, I think you have of everything that's put in there, that's kind of stuff like the
It's not a big deal.
Yeah, so I'll make the motion for the additional.
Second.
There's a motion and a second for the two additionals, which would put that money in there. Further discussion?
This is just moving it from that 1.5 holding location to another holding location, correct?
Well, this will allocate the dollars.
To what plan?
Right, I mean, Madam Auditor, by making this motion, it's, I mean,
You do need to approve
No.
the ARPA assistance number.
Are you hoping to approve both of those?
well,
Yes.
I think yes, and then the following, it's the transfers, right, that we're talking about to put the money in, because there's a number of that is going to salaries, at least we know on the second, the 10 million that held back, that 10 million, I believe that's the stuff that, we've discussed, and we've stuck the salary, the stipends for the county employees, looks like almost $1 million, and then the FICA and PERF, and then there's the roads, 2.7.
This is the breakdown of that.
Yeah, right, and then I think we have to make the transfers after that, if we're gonna agree to approve this, so I don't know if we should discuss, what's in. what our
So is
intentions
the
are.
motion that's been made, is that an appropriate motion at this
I
point?
wanted to get the amount that you're approving.
Okay.
I missed it. I wasn't sure which one.
Well, the amount that I read off from the,
That's the amount that we advertised for both of those.
okay,
Yeah, so the motion for the additional $8,998,625 to $39,940 ARP assistance, and then also the $10,095,195 to $39,500 contractual services.
I seconded that.
well, that's what, so, we knew it was gonna get complicated here.
I'm confused.
So,
Is this stuff that was already approved that we pushed through already?
no, we've never approved that. We've never approved that 8 million, almost $9 million for the nonprofits,
Oh, that's for the nonprofits, okay.
Yes.
It just depends on what you wanted to do.
So would it be
Remember, we
appropriate?
advertised.
So that number is your advertising number?
Right.
Okay.
Help you.
So, there's,
No, it's slightly different.
yeah, slightly different. So so I guess,
Okay, I withdraw my motion.
all right. Okay, we can start over. You withdraw?
Yeah,
your
I
motion?
withdraw.
So I guess with that, because if we approve that,
What are you planning to do? That's
Yeah.
the amounts that we need.
so we knew, after discussion, after the budget session, or we haven't finished that budget session, because if we've got to go back in, if this passes, so I guess to maybe explain it a little bit is, through discussion with council members and trying to figure out as we went through the budgets, and we need almost, what looks like over $1 million for the stipends. So that's got to be thrown into, that $10 million that we held back. Then there's the roads and taxes that the commissioners just opened the bids and approved that. There's $2.7 million. We've talked about the health insurance fund that we got to keep funding, whether it's dropping big money. There's $1.4 million, in that. That also, we talked about the parks, putting park money in there, $50,000 of veteran services, $50,000, the Porter County SWAT, $300,000. So there's all those things in there. So we know what's in that 8 million, which is, I think, the number, and Vicki did some things that, as an auditor, it's gonna make it confusing on paper and make it confusing for us, but she knows what she's doing. It's, so
Thank you.
and what I believe in the conversation is, let me see if I can explain this right. The commissioners approved the plan that had the assistance, those two categories that were left that we had not approved. It was, I think, Project Neighbors had contacted Mike and said that they understood the conversations that were going on, so they agreed to take $700,000. So they agreed to take $700,000. With that, and I think their agreement was, we're hearing you. So I think the council members have been talking that then we cut everybody 10%. All those nonprofits that in the two committees left, cut 10%, 700,000 project neighborhoods, 10% gets cut from everybody else. Then it allows us to put in the other things that are in here, which is in the other $10 million, where it actually goes up to like 10.9 or well, 10,095,000. That's the salaries, FICA, PERF, Memorial Opera House, roads and taxis, health insurance, vehicles, the parks money, so in the veterans service. So
to start, maybe to start the discussion, I'll change my motion to approve the following additional appropriations for 21-027 ARP COVID 8908, ARP assistance, line item 39940 in the amount of $8,494,468. And contractual line item 39,500 in the amount of $10,095,195.
I'll second that motion.
So there's a motion and a second to approve those two numbers additionals, and that additional, then I believe that's that $700,000 cut, right, Madam Auditor, plus the 10%. So that will approve those monies.
Correct.
And they'll be able to get that, but then the second one is, I think it's the salaries, the FICA PERF for the employees, the Memorial Opera House, that's $5 million, roads and taxis, 2.7, health insurance, 1.4, which, to do that, though, they have to be transferred in line item. The motor vehicles, veterans outreach, so we'll have to do that. If these two are approved, then we go into the transfers, correct?
Correct, with one exception, you're saying health insurance 1.4?
Maybe, I'm sorry, because that's down here, so is that what?
It's got health insurance 1.4 and then health insurance under.
It's 1.6 up here, but.
It should be 1.6.
It's up
yes.
here, it's 1.6.
I just want to make sure we're saying 1.6.
Oh, because you have the two
Combination of
line
those
items
two.
down there.
Divided, yeah.
To try to build out your plan, those are the transfers that would.
All right, so stick with the numbers up top. So, okay.
As long as everyone's in agreement, it's 1.6?
What was that, Vicki?
We have,
Yes. Yes, we are.
Thank you.
I will concur.
So to try to clarify perhaps a bit, there's two additionals that we're discussing. One for ARP assistance, $8,494,468. That is made up of $7,898,763, which, as Jeremy or Mr. Chairman mentioned, is the amount that has been allocated, or we're proposing to allocate toward the two remaining subcommittees from the ARPA money. And that's with reducing project neighbors of $700,000, which they very graciously have suggested that we do, and reducing the other nonprofits by 10%, for a total of $7,898,763. Add to that an additional $195,705 for health insurance, $50,000 for veteran advertising outreach, and $350,000 for motor vehicles. That totals up to $8,494,468. To further clarify the contractual line item, that is made up of the
everything below that on the top.
that is made up of it's made up of salaries. The salary component that we talked about includes FICA and PERF as well. It includes $5 million for the Memorial Opera House contractual for that project. It's the $2,700,000 for roadways and taxiways pavement, and an additional $1,404,295 for health insurance, and you add those up, and that equals $10,095,195.
So my question, then, if this passes, the next step, it would have to go in front of the commissioners,
Yeah,
correct?
the motion's got to be, it's,
So I know a contentious point has been the Memorial Opera House, and there's $5 million on there. Obviously, it's our building, we've got to take care of it, I'm not arguing that fact. But my question is, if we pass this, how do we know this other match from the foundation's going to come into play? If they don't, are we just going to upkeep the building? And when's the commissioners going to present on this or be presented? Have they? I'm kind of
Well,
trying to fill in the
I would
blanks.
ask if we approve this, that the request, Joyce sends the request that it go on their next agenda, and then I will contact people at the Mormon Opera House, and if they're sincere about finishing this off, that they commit the rest of the money to the project to raise it. So, yeah,
But our hope is, say they can't raise it, and I have full faith that you guys can, but if you can't, we're still going to use that money and take care of this building and at least get it up to, I don't know if it's not in the code, but that it's going to stand for another 100 years, we're going to get the HVAC fixed, the roof's not leaking, that kind of stuff.
And the intention at this point is that it will be a total of $7.5 million project. And that's not time for public discussion. So at this point, we're projecting to be a $7.5 million project, $2.5 million contributed from the Opera House Foundation, and that's what we're proposing to send to the Commissioner's office for their consideration and approval.
Thank you for clarifying.
So is there any further discussion on this motion? Are we missing anything, Madam Auditor?
Is the motion just to approve the additionals at this point?
Yeah.
Or would
Yes.
you want to, okay, and you'll take up the transfers
Yeah,
the
then
second one?
we'll go to the
Okay.
transfers.
Okay.
So is there any further discussion? Can we get a roll call, Madam Auditor, on the 2 additional appropriations?
Okay. Councilmember Brickner,
Yes.
Councilmember Graham,
Yes.
Councilmember Justin,
Yes.
Councilmember Sims,
Yes.
Councilmember Wagner,
Yes.
Councilmember Rivas,
Yes.
and Councilmember Bozick.
No.
Okay, 6-1.
So then that will leave, Madam Auditor, for you to however that your process is, that you're following all the federal guidelines to disperse the $7,898,763 to all the nonprofits and organizations, right?
Correct.
It is available through the process that your office is following all the federal guidelines
Right.
and county rules.
Can I announce that on, oh, for heaven's sakes, November, it's the Thursday, the first week in November. The auditor's office will be hosting an informational meeting for the nonprofits and any townships that want to attend to go over the process now, because you've already went through the whole process. The commissioners have approved it, the appropriation has been approved. And so we'll go over the process of what we go now for. Now we're moving into the audit and compliance section. And we talked about having this meeting way back when. So,
Well,
yes.
there's a.
But that takes care of the nonprofits, only the nonprofits.
So there's $8 million going out to all those organizations. So,
And you're going to notify them what they're getting and everything.
Well, we're going to notify them of the process that they have to go through now. We're not just cutting checks.
Yeah, no.
First,
I get
there
that.
has to be written agreements, and then we go through the paperwork procedures. Yes.
so then, to move that further to the next step is, I think the auditor has, recommended we transfer these into the appropriate line items for the appropriate usage, which would be then, from contractual, what we approved, line item 39500 to, in the different line item salaries, $917,509, FICA, $70,190, PERF, $93,610, Memorial Opera House contractual, $5 million, roads and taxiways, $2,700,000, health insurance, that's $1,404,295. So these are the transfers, and then from ARP assistance, this is what was taken out. Then it would be the transfers from ARP assistance 39402, health insurance line item 195705, veterans advertising outreach $50,000, motor vehicles $350,000. So we need to do those transfers to put them in the specific line items now.
Are those figures correct, Vicki, or am I looking at a different version?
Yeah, I had a little bit of a variance.
Let me double check. It was in the supplemental pay.
Yeah, he's got something that shows a little bit.
Right. We revised that from,
This is actual.
this is the revision for the supplemental pay.
So this is old.
And that was because of what happened. We removed people from getting the supplemental. Is that why it went down? We removed people from getting the supplemental when we gave the raises to the sheriff, so we had to recalculate the supplemental. I believe that's what happened. So the actual transfer to salaries is 867,339.
Sorry, so, okay.
FICA 66,239 and per 57,322. Even though that's not going to be paid out till next year anyway, at least we get the line items proper.
Yeah, I mentioned these on the bottom. So yeah, I would entertain a motion to, transfer, do the transfers again from contractual 39500 to, again, the salary is 867,339, FICA 66,239, perf 57,322, Memorial Opera House 5 million, roads and taxes 2.7 million, health insurance 1,404,295. And then from ARPA assistance, 39940, transfer to the health insurance line item, 195705, veterans advertising outreach, $50,000, motor vehicles, $350,000. So
I'll make that motion.
Second.
So there's a motion and a second on the floor. Now this will transfer our approvals for what we just passed. There's a motion and a second. Is there a discussion on what we're doing? And then, and this, again, if this is passed, then Joy, I would ask you, yes, that we send this plan to the commissioners and request that they put it on their next meeting, which is when? We know?
November
Nope.
1st, I believe.
November 1st.
All right. All right, so we'll sit to the next meeting. So any further discussion? All in favor of the transfers signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right. So that is done there, but since those actions were taken, that's why I think if we're done with our regular meeting, we'll go back and create a budget that will reflect these same moves so that we don't have to do any encumbrances.
You want a motion to end the meeting, or?
Let me make certain, is there,
You got the attorney to report, I believe.
did I miss anything? Well, we got second reading and then the attorney's report. So can we get second reading, Madam Auditor?
Second reading. Yes. I'm trying, bear with me.
What?
Where's my second reading paper? Okay, well, I'll just
I know.
bear with me just 1 second because of that change. Okay. Okay. Now, be it resolved that it has been determined that it is now necessary to appropriate more money than was appropriated in the annual budget. Therefore, be it resolved by the Porter County Council of Porter County that for the expenses of the taxing unit, the following additional sums of money are hereby appropriated out of the funds named and for the purposes specified, subject to the laws governing the same. Clerk Perpetuation Fund. 31,500. Sales Disclosure Fund, 32,166. Cumulative Bridge Fund, $500. Stormwater Fund, 20,687. Public Defender Supplemental Fund, 17,000. Zone Enforcement Fund, 55,000. Highway Engineering Fund, 100,000. 21.027 ARP COVID Fiscal Recovery Fund, 18,589,663. Indiana Dunes Tourism, $10,000. That concludes second reading.
Any discussion on second reading? I entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion? We get a roll call on second reading
Okay.
to approve.
Councilmember Brickner.
Yes.
Councilmember Graham.
Yes.
Councilmember Jessen.
Yes.
Councilmember Wagner.
Yes.
Councilmember Sims.
Yes.
Councilmember Rivas.
Yes.
And Councilmember Bozick.
Yes.
All right, attorney's report?
Short and sweet tonight. There's nothing new to report. I think there's been a lot substantively and positively that's happened tonight, so I'll leave it at that.
Okay. All right. if anything else from the council, any other matters probably come before the council?
Budget, right?
Yeah, we'll go back to the budget. You wanna invite them up now?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and second for, to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So, Harold, we'll just go right back into the budget session then.